Good morning, YouTubers. This is Steve Bradley coming to you from the God Loves People YouTube channel one more time. And today we're going to be discussing Matthew chapter 6, verses 16 and following. Now this is not only a very interesting but a very helpful passage because it talks to us clearly about what we're not supposed to do when we perform our religious observances. In this case, fasting. So let's read it and check it out here. In Matthew chapter 6, verse 16, Jesus says, "Moreover, when you fast, don't be like the hypocrites of a sad countenance." In other words, they're showing off. "For they disfigure their faces, that they may appear to men to fast." In other words, they show themselves as fasters. They mark themselves up or do whatever it is. "Truly, I say to you, they have their reward." In other words, they've been seen by men. That's what they really wanted. They're not going to get anything from God. "But you, when you fast, anoint your face, anoint your head, and wash your face, so that you don't seem like you're fasting. You appear not unto men to fast, but to your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees in secret shall reward you openly." You see, what God wants from us is honesty. He doesn't want people to look at us as super special just because we have Him in our lives. So Jesus says, when you fast, don't be like the hypocrites. The word hypocrites in Greek is someone who puts a mask, or it's actually the mask, over his face to act and to appear different than he really is. They did that in the Greek plays. Now that is not the disciples' way. The disciples' way is to show God who He is, not man. Let's look over here at Matthew chapter 23, and we'll see a kind of a parallel here. He says, "Then Jesus spoke to the multitude and to His disciples, saying, The scribes and Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. Everything, whatever they tell you to observe, that observe and do. But don't do according to their works, for they say and do not. For they bind heavy burdens and grievous to be borne," in other words, hard to carry, "and lay them on men's shoulders, but they themselves will not move them with one of their fingers." Now here's the target verse, I should say. "All their works they do to be seen by men." Now think about that. If you're doing your works to be seen by men, you don't really care about God. You're not interested in what He thinks. You're not interested in how this affects your relationship with Him. So the disciples' way is action, not show. The disciple is supposed to just do it and not pretend that he's doing it and show off while he's doing it. "Look how long I can pray. Look how much I read my Bible. Look what kind of Bibles I have. Look at all me. Look at me. Look at me, mankind." When what we're supposed to be doing is pointing toward God, not us. Now, this of course is a continuance of Matthew chapter 6, verse 1, where Jesus said, "Take heed that you don't do your alms," that's acts of righteousness or mercy, "before men to be seen by them. Otherwise, you have no reward of your Father, from your Father who is in heaven." So it's super important, folks, when you're doing righteous deeds, do them for God. Don't do them because somebody sees it. Do it because God told you to do it. And the same thing is true, of course, of fasting, which is something that people do still practice, and you should. And if somebody says in a comment, "I want you to talk about that," then I will. I want to close with this passage because it's so very instructive. In Luke chapter 18, Jesus says this, 18:9 and following. It says, he spoke this parable to certain people who trusted in themselves that they were righteous and despised others. He says, 2 men went up into the temple to pray, the one a Pharisee and the other a publican, that is, a tax collector. The Pharisee stood and prayed thus within himself, God, I thank you that I am not like other men. I'm not an adulterer, I'm not an extortioner, I'm not unjust, I'm not even like this publican, this tax collector. I fast twice in the week, I give tithes of all that I possess. And then the publican, standing afar off from the temple, would not lift up his eyes so much as his eyes to heaven, but smote upon his breast. He struck his breast, begging God to be merciful to him, the sinner. And Jesus says in his conclusion, he says, I tell you, this man went down to his house justified rather than the other, for everyone who exalts himself shall be abased, and he who humbles himself shall be exalted. And when you do things to be seen by men, you're just trying to exalt yourself in front of them. So don't do that. Do what you do for God and glorify him. God bless you all. This is Steve Bradley signing off for the God Loves People YouTube channel.